Welcome back to another episode of FNL Fridays. My name's Teresa, I am your host, and I'm here to talk about all things fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle. So we are in full swing of back to school season. It's September, which means most of us are going back to school. Well, not me, but most of us, our families, our kids are going back to school if they haven't already started. So today, what I want to talk about is how to manage the stress of back to school, because this can be a really stressful time for families, especially parents, even the kids, right? Because they have to go back to school. So I want to give some tips for you to implement so hopefully you can make that transition just a little bit easier. The first thing that I think is the most important is to acknowledge that things are about to change. So just being open to the fact that your schedules are going to change, your stressors are going to change, whose role is doing what is going to change. So a lot of things are about to change. And of course, you've probably been through this before because we go through it every year, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. So just acknowledging things are going to be maybe a little chaotic unless you're super structured and planned, but they might be a little chaotic and things might just be different. So just being ready for that and aware of it. Once you've come to terms with the fact that things are just going to be different and school's about to start and schedules are going to change, it's really helpful to establish a plan and what your new normal is, because again, you're going from summer where we have days off, maybe your work schedule is different, the kids are home all the time, to now having the kids at school, your work schedule might be different, you have to pick them up, you have to make food, whatever it is, your schedule is going to change. So it's really helpful to kind of plan out what this new schedule and this new normal is going to look like. Now, this doesn't just include schedule, this includes things like budget, family time, and food. Your budget's going to change because you have school supplies, clothes, maybe sports, fees, things like that. Family time is going to look a little bit different because now the kids are in school and maybe they're, doing after school sports, things like that. Or if you're in college, maybe, your schedule is totally different because now you're taking classes. So maybe you can't see your family as much or only on certain days. And also food, because a lot of times, hopefully we're eating dinner together at night. So realizing that, you might have other people to be cooking for or shopping for, or maybe you're doing it for yourself now if you're not living at home anymore. So just being aware of all of these things that are going to be changing and having a plan for them. On that note, real quick, if you are a little bit overwhelmed with food and how to shop and nutrition and all that stuff, because it can be overwhelming, especially if you're on your own now or you're kind of new to it or you're changing up your family's eating habits, I do have a free PDF overviewing macronutrients, what they are, what they do, and even a macronutrient shopping list. So you can take that right to the store with you and you can look at the list and buy a bunch of things from each macronutrient category. That way your meals are going to be nice and well-rounded. You're going to get a lot of fresh produce, fruits, vegetables, and proteins, all that good stuff. I'll make sure to link that below the video if you want to download that for free. After you've established your new normal, your new plan, it's really good to prepare as best you can, using maybe a whiteboard to map out what the whole month is going to look like so that you can kind of look at it from a big picture overview. Maybe it's setting reminders on your phone because you're going to be on the go all the time, and maybe it's not so easy to, write things on that whiteboard. So using apps, things like that, to make sure you stay on top of things, make sure you don't forget things. There's actually an app called Cozy, which is for families. I haven't personally used it, but it looks pretty cool. So something like that could be useful if you're trying to manage things within your family with other members of your family. The other thing that's important is to check in with everyone to see how they're doing. So being prepared, making sure everyone's on the same page, making sure communication is there. That's so important when you're going through a transition. So making sure that everyone feels good, that they all understand what's happening, the changes, the new normal, and the plan to kind of manage everything. Like I just mentioned, communication is super important, especially when you're going through a transition. So making sure that everybody knows their new role, because again, if things are changing, roles are probably going to change. So maybe the kids have different roles, maybe the parents have different roles than they did during the summer. So making sure to manage expectations, especially of other people, because it's easy to manage our expectations of ourselves, usually, but it's a lot harder to manage expectations of other people. So making sure you know what to expect from them and they know what to expect from you. One other thing that I think is really important when you're going through a transition like back to school is to make time for yourself. Now, it might feel like you can't do that because there's just so many things going on all the time, and I understand that, but maybe you can just make 5 minutes a night, or maybe one day a week on the weekend, or half a day on the weekend to just decompress, not be go, go, go all the time, just kind of connect back in with yourself, recenter yourself. One of the ways that I love to do this, and I actually do this every morning, is by journaling. Granted, this doesn't necessarily have to do with back to school, but this just has to do with my life and all of the things going on in it and all of the transitions that are happening in my life at various times. So I find that journaling every morning on pen and paper, not in my phone, not on the computer, it really helps me to focus, to slow down, and to kind of establish what I'm feeling, what I'm going through, and what I want to be focusing on. If you're someone like me who likes to write everything out on pen and paper to kind of plan ahead and reflect back on how the last week or the last month went, I actually use my own journal, the FNL Journal, and if you're interested in trying that, you can actually download a free 1-month version on my website, www.fnljournal.com, and you can just give it a try and see if journaling is something that's helpful for you. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be, but I absolutely think it's worth trying if you haven't done it already. Those are my quick tips for managing the stress of back to school. I really hope that some of these tips have been helpful for you. Maybe you've heard of some of them, maybe you haven't heard of all of them, but I would love to know which ones you want to implement in your life. So leave me a comment below and let me know which one you're already using or you plan on using. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next Friday.